Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 45 of the Self-Publishing Roundtable, the podcast by indie authors for indie authors. I am your host, Wade Finnegan, and my co-hosts for this evening are John Ward, David W. Wright, and Trish McCallan. Carl Sinclair had a fire tornado or some damn thing happen, and so he has no power, but maybe he'll jump in on the comments via telephone. Our special guest tonight is fantasy writer Lindsay Buroker. Lindsay found success selling her self-published works starting back in like 2011. Hopefully I have that right. And she has been known for her ability to connect with readers that really helped to vault that success. And many of our authors ask us and want to know how to make connections with their audience, so that's why we invited her on. We'll be looking at, building her newsletter and transitioning readers from one series to another, and of course a variety of other things and what have you. So thank you, Lindsay, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Hello, thanks for having me, guys. It's good to be here.
So Lindsay, can you just give us a little synopsis of your writing journey? Don't have to have no deep dark secrets, but how you got here to where you are today.
How many people did you kill to make this happen?
Yes.
Less than 100.
That's good. That's commendable.
That's a good day for Dave.
Book, though? Is that per book, Lindsay? Less than 100 per book?
Per series, yeah.
Oh, per series, okay.
All right, I do have my dog standing here bugging me, so just in case you're wondering why I'm like doing things with my hands down here.
That's
perfectly
okay.
fine.
You're nothing like Dave, so we're all
perfectly PG.
I was going to leave that alone.
Yeah, but okay. I actually started in December of 2010, but I didn't really sell much that month, so 2011 is good. I had written 2 fantasy novels at the time, and I wasn't really aware yet of the whole Kindle self-publishing thing. I was reluctantly going to start querying agents, even though I didn't think they'd be that interested in my work. I tend to write kind of high fantasy, secondary world, swords and sorcery sort of things, and I remember when I was looking at the agent pages, they were like, please send us nothing that has with elves or dragons or made-up fantasy stuff. We're not into that. And which is lame because it sells really well on Amazon. But anyway, I was dreading the process, and 2 things happened about the same time. I got a Kindle, and I also found J.A. Conrath's blog, like lots of other self-publishers. And within a couple weeks, I decided, yeah, this sounds good. I want to try this. I have no patience, so I was, like I said, dreading the whole agent thing. And so I put both novels up there. They weren't that related, but I just figured, let's go for it and see which one does best, and then I'll make a series out of. I could have done either one. And I did not sell tons in the beginning. Like, I don't know, I'm always jealous of these people that have these stellar starting points, but I just kind of gradually worked things up, and I was lucky to get a few good reviews, and that kept me motivated. Sold a few books. I tried advertising on Goodreads, and I probably tried everything you can try that first year, and a little bit worked here, a little bit worked there, and kind of gradually over time I've been able to build up a loyal fan base for my Emperor's Edge series, which now has 8 books, and I've written some other stuff too.
Excellent.
I'm looking at the cover for your Republic book that's on our website right now, and that is a beautiful cover.
Actually, it's kind of interesting because I had to start out doing photo manipulation stuff because I was poor, and that was cheaper than custom illustrations. And but actually, the guy I've been working with all along, Glendon at Streetlight Graphics, I started out with him, and then he's kind of hired, I think, a couple of those illustrators. He's gotten bigger as I have, so now it's an option, and it's actually fairly affordable. So I'm really excited to be able to do that, especially with fantasy. The illustrations are very nice for the genre.
Yeah, I've noticed the books that typically do well in fantasy have very beautiful covers, and this is no exception. So.
Even bonus points if you have a dragon on it, I've noticed. The reviews can be horrible, but if there's this killer dragon on it, that's going to be the bestseller right there.
I will keep that in mind for my fantasy book. There'll be so many dragons you can't even see anything.
So, Lindsay, how did you start building your fan base? Did you do anything specifically to start finding those fans, or did they just find you over time?
A little bit of both. Put putting out the same series with the same characters, I noticed probably around book 3, I started getting emails, and now and then somebody would send me fan art, which I thought was just really cool. I thought that was the sort of thing you had to be a published author to get, or a traditionally published author. And I think August, that first year, August 2011, I finally, kicking and screaming, built a Facebook author page. I was not a big Facebook fan. And, it was kind of interesting because some people found me right away and said, "Oh, we've been waiting for you to come to Facebook. Thank you for coming." And, I tried to interact with people there. And I noticed some of the people were exchanging, like talking to each other in the comments, not just commenting on what I said. And eventually one of the gals there, who goes by Mana online, she put together a forum and a chat room for Emperor's Edge fans. And so I've met some really cool readers that way, and they go and talk about the books there. And so it's a little bit and I have some active people on Twitter that have made accounts for my various characters, and we'll kind of role play on there a little bit. So it's been kind of, I've just tried to encourage it. I don't necessarily start things, except I do try to be everywhere, kind of be on Twitter, be on Facebook, be on my blog, self-publishing podcast, anywhere that people might want to interact, because you never know, because some people will follow you via your newsletter. Some people only will follow you on Twitter, only Facebook. Some people just check your webpage now and then. So I guess let's try to be everywhere is the master plan.
Now you said you got fan art fairly early on. Was this something you had requested, or did people just start sending it to you out of the blue?
I didn't request it. First couple just emailed to me, and somebody did like a RPG dungeon or something like that. I wasn't quite sure. I used to play D&D like 20 years ago, but I've kind of lost track of what's going on in that world now. But I thought that was really cool, and I think I've got a spot on my website where I link to some of the fan art. And then when Pinterest got bigger, I started posting everything on there. And I think having the forum too has helped people, because they share. They have a little thread, and they see other people that have posted fan art, and then they think about doing it. And my dog's trying to unplug me.
Get off that show! Come feed me.
He thinks I'm talking to him. I mean, I must be, because I'm talking and he's here.
That's right. Center of the universe, right?
Lindsay, recently you linked to a podcast you did talking about novellas and how you can build a fan base with that. Can you share some of that information here for the people in our audience who haven't heard your podcast, your walking podcast?
Yeah, you're only 20 people or so have listened, so it's. Excuse me, I have a bully stick I have to throw. Well, the question was novellas. Yeah, that's sort of what I did in the beginning. Like most normal people, I wasn't yet able to write 12 novels a year. I'm still not able to write 12 novels a year, but I'm getting closer. But I thought that it would be neat to do some short stories and novellas in between releases of the novels, because I could write them much more quickly. And I thought, well, 40,000 words, maybe I can charge $2.99 for them and get that 70% royalty. So, and I think also when you do novellas, it's a chance to try out new characters, try out a new setting without committing to writing an entire novel or a 6-book epic fantasy series. And I would say my Flash Gold series is the one I've done. I'm about to publish the 4th one, Novellas, and it's actually a series independent on its own. And it's considering how much less time went into it, I think it's done pretty well. It's not a huge seller, but it's definitely got some fans, and I get emails asking when the next one's coming out. And then I've also done novellas that tie into my Emperor's Edge world. One of them did a point of view character that's more of a minor character that I wouldn't usually do for a full-length novel. And it's been interesting. I think people do like them. I often hear I want longer stories, I want novels, but it's definitely a way to keep your name out there, kind of in between your publishing maybe your novels, or especially if you're not the Uber writer yet and it takes a year or to get a novel together. I think if you do a series or a serial like Dave does, I think it's a way to get your work out there more quickly and maybe try building up a fan base that way.
Okay. And have you noticed any preference among your readers over, do people find the novel length work more or the novella length? Any observations like that?
The novels definitely sell better, and the people always want longer stories. Like this last one I did was over 200,000 words with 6 point of view characters, and it almost killed me. I don't write the epic fantasy stuff usually, and I was afraid it was going to be boring, and people were going to be like, oh, this is so boring, I skimmed half of it. But no, they're like, no, we like this, more longer novels. This is good. But I think they like more, but they'll try out shorter stuff, especially if you're doing novellas and the first one's free or 99 cents. It's not a whole lot for them to invest, throw money at if they don't like it. It's not a big deal, and I don't know. It's less popular, and yet since it takes so much less time to write, it can be worth it.
Now, how long are your novellas? What do they range?
They go from 17,000 was my first one, which is pretty short, all the way up to like 55,000, which is a novel for some people. But when you're writing 100 or 200,000 word novels, to me that's a novella. But I'd say like 30 or 40 is a good range that I shoot for, and that's kind of a price point where you can get away with charging $2.99, I think.
And do you get people that complain like, oh, $2.99 is too much for this?
No, I think I'm pretty low to middle end on pricing, so I really don't get complaints on that. Shorter novellas I've done for $99 or $1.99.
Yeah.
Usually it's close to 40,000 words before I charge $2.99, and then my novels are usually $3.99 or $4.95 depending on the length. The really big one I just released is $5.95, and that's just because it was so long. I felt that they were really getting a good deal still by paying $6.
Is that the 200,000 word one?
It is, yes. And I had to pay my editor 3 times as much as usual too, so I've got to recoup those expenses.
Yeah. Trish, you got a question?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about newsletters. Newsletters are becoming increasingly important kind of as the industry changes. And there's all sorts of ways that you hear online to build up a newsletter, some ways that don't work quite as well as other ways. I know that you've built up a pretty healthy newsletter, so I'm just wondering if you could go into kind of how you did that.
Definitely. I think there's probably the 2 main ways people will tell you to do it. One is just have it very form prominently on your website, and then offer to give away something free if people sign up for your newsletter. I'm less a fan of that, because then you get people signing up maybe that aren't fans yet. I really just want the people that at least have read one book and really enjoyed it to sign up. I might give them stuff anyway for signing up, but I want them to try my writing first, so I generally advertise my newsletter at the end of books. In the afterword, I'll say, thanks for reading. You can, here's my Twitter and Facebook if you want to connect with me. Here's my blog. And if you want to hear what's coming up next, sign up for my newsletter. And I'll also make announcements there for contests and things like that, trying to give them a little bit extra information than they might get just off my website, so that there is a reason to belong. I've sent out coupons before, like with Smashwords, if I'm maybe trying out a new series or something and I want to let them try it out for 99 cents, even though maybe the regular price is $2.99. So I do offer a few perks, and but mostly I just say, do you want to know what's happening, or what's coming out next? Do you want to be the first to know? Sign up. And I think too, when you start to get thousands of people on your newsletter, it's important you want the people that are going to buy your books, not necessarily just anybody that came to your website and that you kind of worked and finagled and got them on there any way possible, because you actually start having to pay more money once you have the letter going out to more subscribers. So it's definitely, I think it's worth just kind of focusing on people who are fans, or at least have read one book and enjoyed it.
So I've got kind of a more specific question for you. Now, did you notice a big drop in your newsletter open rates when Gmail changed their inbox protocol?
I did not. I use Aweber for my newsletter service. It's more expensive than some of them. I don't know if that makes a difference on where they're coming from, but it's pretty healthy across the board, and maybe that is something to do with people. Most of the people on there want to open and click on the links and check on things, but yeah, I'm not even sure when that happened, because it's not something I noticed.
Okay.
What did you say you included in the newsletter, just besides like, hey, here's my next book? Do you have any other stuff that you tend to try to include, and how often do you produce one?
I usually shoot for once a month, just as on a personal thing, more often than that. And I tend to get annoyed when I get newsletters every week or multiple times a week. So I think once a month kind of keeps your name alive, and they don't forget who the heck you are and why they signed up and report you as spam. So that's good. And I almost always now, I've been, since I've been doing this full time, I have new stuff out quite often. So every month I almost always have some good news as a new release, or like I was saying, I've done coupons before. I've let them know when I post scenes on my blog, like cut scenes from the books, or I've done character interviews, kind of extra things like that. One month when I didn't have anything of my own to release, I pointed one of my beta readers had a new book out, so I said, hey guys, go check this out. It's really good. I read it, and so that was a good perk for her. She got quite a few readers, and I always hope people will do the same for me one day. These things kind of the karma networking thing seems to help. So I just try to make sure it's something interesting to them, not, I don't know, spam. I don't think any authors spam them, but I do think that you don't want to disappear for 6 months and then all of a sudden be like, buy my book. So if you kind of send out stuff in the middle, even if it's a character interview or something, maybe you don't have a new book ready, but you've got something you post on your blog, a little extra, then sure, people would be interested in that, especially if you're trying to just get fans to sign up. They were going to be excited about those extras.
So a daily newsletter would be a bad idea then, right?
If you're very, very entertaining, I'm sure you could make it work. There are such things out there, I've heard, but no, I don't even want my friends to email me that much. I'm like, really, go get a life.
John, did you have a question?
I had read. I didn't read the whole thing because I just got it. So I'll have to refer to it again at a later point. But the gist of it was that Google, the way it deals with newsletters and stuff, it treats them differently depending on engagement and open rates. And if your newsletter readers actually engage with you, either they're clicking links or even responding to your email, it's more likely that future emails will be handled better by Google. Because what Google did was they put most of the newsletters and stuff into the promotions folder, not into your regular folder. And a lot of people have noticed a severe drop after that. But if you can find a way, I think there's a way once you have the email to say, this is not promotion, this should go in the personal thing. It will do that, but I think it'll also auto do it if you're actively engaging with the person that sent you the newsletter. Because I know some of mine go into my regular mail folder rather than my promotions folder.
See, I don't think that's true because I've replied to some of your emails, Dave, from Collective Inkwell, and you guys still always go in the promotions folder. The only way to know for sure that will go to your regular folder is if the user grabs the email and drags it to the primary inbox. Then from that point on, it will always go to the primary inbox.
Okay, well, I subscribe on a separate Gmail account to our newsletter just to see how other people see it, and it does go into my personal one. So I'll have to read the article again. Once I probably shouldn't have said anything because I just found out about it and I haven't read the whole thing. Yeah. But I know the point of the article though was that engagement definitely helps your newsletter.
It is Google, they changed.
Maybe that's a lot of the click rate too. If you're getting a pretty good click rate then on what you're sending out, then that's the engagement they're looking for. I don't know, but mine, my Google or my Gmail subscribers, only 12% of them were open versus like 76% of every single other email provider.
Yeah, and I've heard that from other authors that we talked to that have pretty big lists, and they definitely noticed a decrease on the Gmail.
All right, I'm definitely going to have to look into this now, you guys. I hadn't heard of this before, so I will check it out for sure. Now you got me paranoid.
Well, I was hoping you might have a secret on how to get out of that.
Yeah, interesting. No, I do have a lot of people that reply, so maybe it'll be kind of a Facebook thing, if Dave is right, with the response where if you ask a question at somewhere in your email and you kind of encourage a response, that you'll get more people responding to you. course, then you have to answer them. I get whenever I send out a newsletter, it's getting to the point now where it's like, oh my gosh, I have to answer all these people.
Yeah, that's the problem. So now I totally lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you, kind of shifting the subject here, this is something that you mentioned before where you had posted your beta readers book in your newsletter. Have you done any other type of author promotions, like multiple author promotions? What have you found to be successful in working with other authors for promoting your work?
I'm actually kind of a lone wolf with that stuff. I'm going to do my first bundled box set with some gals that approached me I have like one contemporary fantasy novel, and so they're going to do an urban fantasy box set here in August, and I'm going to try to get the second one out before then so that I can actually reap the benefits of, because some of them are quite good sellers. So I think that, I've interviewed some people that are doing that. Andrea Sharp that did Fairy Worlds brought that together. She's done 2 or 3 really solid box sets, and I'm definitely intrigued by it. I just don't want to be the one to organize it. So anybody that wants to invite me to join and you do all the work, I love that model, so come find me.
I wanted to ask you about that contemporary fantasy. It's Torrent, right? The Rust and Relic series?
Yes, that's it.
How well has it been doing for you? Have you had a difficult time getting people to transition over from Emperor's Edge since it's such a different flavor?
Yes and no. I think right in the beginning I released it and I made it 99 cents for the first couple of days, and it actually sold really quite well for after that. For the next month or so, I didn't do any advertising aside from mentioning it to the newsletter. I did get some reviews that were, because it's the first thing I've done that's first person, kind of a modern. Urban fantasy, is often kind of a first-person snarky narrator, and so that's definitely a little different than my usual third-person, less snarky. Usually my jokes are in the dialogue. So I did have some readers that are like, oh, this is horrible. I skimmed it. It was just awful, and rolled my eyes through the whole thing, and I was like crushed, of course. But since then, a lot of people have found it that were not Emperor's Edge fans and have they enjoyed it because it is more of that urban fantasy type that I think they're more used to. It's funny because non-fantasy people are probably like, what's the difference? Contemporary fantasy, dragons, whatever. It's all the same. But it's very different and a very different group of readers sometimes. So it's probably got my lowest review average overall, but it did sell quite well the first couple of months, and it's not doing much now. I'm just totally ignoring it because I've been on a steampunk kick. But I am going to work on the second one here and do a BookBub ad for the first one, and we'll definitely give it a try because it generally seems to be a little more popular genre overall than maybe the secondary world fantasy. Especially, I usually write female characters, female main characters, and I think that's almost common in the contemporary urban fantasy. So I don't know. We'll see. It did pretty well considering I've done no advertising. And
now, you use the term contemporary fantasy. Is that deliberate, or is that just what you choose to call it? Because there's so much confusion about what urban fantasy is and stuff. I was wondering if you're trying to make a point by your use of the term.
I would call it contemporary fantasy because it's set more in the mountains. It's actually set in the town I moved to in Arizona, but they're out in the tunnels and chasing monsters, and so it's questionable whether it's really urban fantasy. It's definitely not a big city. So I say, yeah, contemporary fantasy, and then with urban fantasy, I kind of think my Emperor's Edge stuff is urban fantasy because it takes place in a city. It's not a modern city. It's not set in this world, but it's a city. So if you're just defining it that way, yeah, they're kind of weird. Some of the definitions are different depending on who you talk to.
That's interesting, actually. I was at a science fiction and fantasy convention a couple of weeks ago, and they had a panel on urban fantasy, and there was a big argument going between whether they should be calling it contemporary fantasy if it's not in an urban setting, or urban fantasy regardless of how the setting is.
I think it's like shelving purposes,
Yeah.
It's like, does it really matter what category can I put this on Amazon so it'll be noticed? I don't really worry about when I write. I just write what I want to write, and sometimes it can be hard to find exactly the right category.
No.
People that actually write something that fits into a neat little category, that's probably a good idea from a business standpoint, but I don't necessarily work that way.
Amazon does have a contemporary fantasy category now, don't they? Didn't they include one in their last round of categories?
I'd have to check. I want to say it's paranormal and contemporary fantasy, but I'm not 100% sure. Or urban and paranormal. No, I think it's paranormal and contemporary, and then there's urban fantasy, and then there's those categories you can only get into with special keywords, which I learned about on your show for the first time, so I do appreciate that. So it's all very confusing. If you're confused, that's why.
Carl Sinclair on the website has a question. A lot of epic or high fantasy in recent years has gone darker and grittier. Sanderson, Martin, Weeks, Rothfuss, for example. Are your fantasy books lighter in content, violence, etc., or are they following the overall trend from the traditional counterparts?
Is that Carl who's in the middle of a thunderstorm with kangaroos beating at the door?
He's using his phone.
All right. Well, thank you, Carl. I appreciate it.
Or he's just hiding from the show tonight. One of the two.
Yeah. Oh, no, my stuff is very, very rarely dark, and if it goes dark, it's not dark for too long. My characters are all sarcastic smartasses, and I was in the Army for 4 years, and I draw on that somewhat because I was the only female in a group of guys, and boy, was that educational. The things I learned. But no matter how bad of mood people were in, how hard the work was, like if you were on hour 20 of a 24-hour shift, people were always cracking jokes. So I think even in a really grim world, people tend to get that bleak humor, if nothing else. One fantasy series I enjoyed growing up was the Black Company books, and they were really dark. It was a mercenary outfit. They were always dying, but the narrator was funny, and there was some humor in it. And I'm not a dark person by nature, so I tend to make jokes and keep it light. And I enjoy writing I try to be witty dialogue. I almost wanted to write screenplays at one point and do sitcoms. I was scared off by the whole Hollywood, trying to get a job in Hollywood kind of thing. I didn't get very far, but I really enjoy smart dialogue. It's something I really appreciate when I hear it or when I read it in books. So that's what I love.
Make Hollywood come to you. Darren Waremouth asks, has Lindsay received any traditional offers, and does she have specific criteria to sell? Also, I'd like to know if she thinks a small press offers any value to an experienced indie.
The only serious one I got was from 47 North from Amazon. Pretty early on, it was sort of just the point where I'd started making a livable income, and I didn't want to rock the boat. It was for my Emperor's Edge series also, and I was really reluctant to kind of give up my money-making series. And there wasn't really any substantial money involved with it. It was just sort of like maybe they could promote me better, so I wasn't that tempted, and I decided to stay on my own. Since then, I've turned down a couple of agents, but I have not had, any huge publishers come and approach me. I don't know if you blog about self-publishing and how to do it all on your own. I don't know, maybe that turns them off. Or I'm just kind of a mid-list author. I tend to, when I have a new release, it'll be up there for a while, but I've just kind of quietly do my own thing, and haven't really made a huge splash anywhere yet, so we'll see. I wouldn't be that tempted really unless it was like I can go buy a house with the advance kind of money. I'm doing really well right now on my own, and maybe someday with some series I might be interested, but I'm not sure I would give up my flagship series for sure.
Now, you touched on something that I have a question about. You say when your books, first come out, they rank high, and I guess they sort of fall off over time. Do you do stuff? Do you do sales and promotions and like the book blogs and stuff to give your books a little bit of juice in between releases?
I do my first book every now and then on BookBub, or I have an omnibus collection of the first 3 Emperor's Edge books. And I try the other sites. Like if it's been my first one is permanently free, and if it's only got, not that many downloads going on this month, I'll try to find a site that might make a difference. I do like the advertising when it's effective, which is, not that often, just because it's such so little effort on my part. I'm always active on Twitter and social media, and I imagine I pick up some people that way too, but I don't do a whole lot. I've tried book blog tours in the past, and I've tried a lot of the things that people try, and I find that it's really big time sink with most things, where it gets to be I could just be writing the next book with this time and make more money that way. But yeah, I'll definitely try the BookBub for sure. I haven't been in Pixel of Ink for a while, and eReader News Today. They're all these sites that are great, are hard to get into. Fortunately, BookBub likes me still, so I don't know. They usually do my stuff when I pay them to. But yeah, I'll definitely, probably once a month or something, I'll try something, just to kind of keep the wheels going and keep getting people in the series, and that helps keep the monthly income be pretty steady, because you keep getting new people that are at different points in the series, and so yeah, it works.
We have a question regarding writing from Jay Chastain. He says, how much world building does Lindsay do before starting each book or series?
That's not really my thing. I kind of make things up on the fly. I'm always impressed with, I know some of these science fiction and fantasy authors just have these huge books of world details, and I'll often have readers remind me that something happened in 3 books ago that I forgot to address, or I'm contradicting myself. So I do now send things out early to early readers to try to catch those things, because I take notes as I go. I try to keep track of things I make up, and I usually got a rough map in my head, but I'm really more of a character-driven writer. I'm really excited about exploring what's going on with the characters, and I kind of make up the world and change the world and do things as a result of what the characters are doing. So I'm definitely not a huge in advance. I usually just have a few ideas and go from there.
Building off of that, how much work do you put into getting to know the character before you sit down to write? Or do you just discover them as you go along?
Well, one of the nice things about a series is you just know them pretty well after a while. When you're starting something new, I'll usually have a pretty good idea of what the first, maybe there's 2 main characters or something, what those guys are about, what their background is. Yeah, I tend to think about a new idea for a while before I actually get around to starting to write it, and so that gives time for me to develop the characters. And usually I want to know sort of a little bit about their background and sort of what's their main goal. What are we going to be throwing obstacles into their path to stop them from doing? And I often find that once you kind of figure out what somebody's mission is in life, because it's fantasy, they're not just working at Walmart and feeding the kids. It's got to be more epic than that. But and that's a big part of defining the character and figure things out for me.
Trish?
Okay, I wanted to touch a little bit on where your books are at, whether you've tried the KDP Select, whether that worked for you, if your books are at Barnes & Noble, Apple. I mean, did you go distributor-wide, or did you kind of stick with Amazon and build off of that?
I've never done KDP Select, and let me tell you, I was jealous that first year when people were doing all that post-free bounce, I'm going to sell 20,000 books the next week stuff. But I'd started probably about a year before that came out, and I just went through with Smashwords. I got into iTunes, and so I'm in Barnes & Nobles, and back then you had to go through Smashwords to Kobo, of course. And so I just put it everywhere, figuring the more places my book is out there, the better my odds are of building up a fan base. And so by the time KDP Select came around, I already did have readers that were loyal to their Nook or the Kobo reader, iTunes. So I wasn't willing to switch over to just doing exclusive with Amazon. I don't really like that idea anyway. And by being in the other stores continuously and by having the perma-free book out there, it's really helped me. I actually do make money from iTunes and Kobo, and it's really exciting when the quarterly payments come in from Smashwords, because that's money that I wasn't really banking on for anything. So it's like, yeah, ski trip. I mean, pay down debt like a responsible adult. So it's good.
Looking at the website, Patrick Stemp had a question. Lindsay, do you use Goodreads to interact with fans at all? And if so, how much engagement do you get there on Goodreads?
I signed up for Goodreads in the beginning because everybody said to, and I tried some of their advertising campaigns, and I think it's one of those things where if you like it and you really like to review books, you can definitely meet readers there and do a good job there. I never review books. These days I'm lucky if I read like a book every 2 weeks. I used to read a lot more, and the writing is really shifted that, and especially now it's usually audiobooks when I do when I'm out walking and stuff. So, and I've never really been a big reviewer. I'm always like, I can't think of anything smart or pithy to say here, so I don't have any reviews up on Amazon either. So that's not really my bag, but I do think if authors enjoy reviewing anyway, then definitely work Goodreads. I think it's a good place for that. You know, it's one of those places you have to be into it. You have to be a consumer there as well as an author trying to push your books.
All right, Trish, you had a follow-up question?
Yeah, do you do like advanced reader copies, or do you have a street team that you provide review copies to, and then they post reviews for you before, you know, when your book goes live?
I have not done that in the past, and I just kind of started doing something like that with my last book, which was a new steampunk book that, you know, I was like, I wasn't sure people would try it, and I happened to have the big 200,000 word book coming out a few weeks later. So I sent an email out to my readers and said, hey, if anybody's interested in reviewing this book, I'll give you a review copy, and all you have to do is send me the link to the review, and then I'll give you a copy of the new book that's coming out too. And so that worked really well. It's now up to 100 reviews on Amazon for that book, which is just a standalone, not in a series or related to anything. And it was the #1 steampunk book for over a month there, and sold pretty well, even though I didn't do any other advertising. So now I'm definitely thinking, yes, I should really, yeah, I think in the past I've heard people talk about the street teams, and I thought, well, I'm not sure that's really my thing. I don't want to ask people to like give out books, for, you know, promotional swag and stuff for me. I don't know, it seemed like I'm trying to take advantage of readers or something, but I can definitely see the advantage in getting review copies out early and asking people to review. So that's something I'll be looking into more in the future. One of my problems is I'm so impatient to publish. As soon as the book is finished in my hands, I want to put it out there. So, and people are always bugging me for it, so like, here it is. But yeah, I think it's a great idea, the people that do that, and it's definitely super effective if you can get a lot of reviews kind of that first week. Then you can go and maybe get a BookBub ad or something while you're still, maybe right as you're coming down off of that 30 days, and Amazon's maybe would stop selling as well on its own, and so I think it's a great thing.
Nice. John, you got a question?
Yeah, it seems like when you first started, during that first year, you released several books and novellas, and I've heard people say, you know, just conjecture that that's one of the big ways that you found success early on, was just one release after another. If something happened and tomorrow you wake up and all of your books are gone, you're starting over as a brand new author, would you do anything differently, or would you still pursue the same release schedule? Anything different? Any advice that you would have for someone who's just starting off right now?
You know, I'd kind of be tempted to just say, you know, I've heard this advice probably on here too, is maybe just write like the first 3 books in a series and try to release them maybe one each month for the first 3 months, and maybe just try to do some advertising as soon as you have some reviews on that first one, and drop the price to 99 cents or even free. You know, free's not as powerful, I don't think, as it used to be, since Amazon's kind of hidden the top 100 free. It's not quite as apparent as it used to be for people just browsing the site, but it's easy to get people to try something. And maybe if you're like me, if you're an introvert and you're really just not into the marketing and you're kind of scared off by it, which seems to be a lot of writers, understandably, I always found that it's much easier for me to like go on Twitter and try to promote a free book, because I'm like, they don't have anything to lose, I don't have anything to lose. Whereas when you're, you know, I always see people on there, oh, Twitter, here, come buy my book for $2.99 and check it out. You know, I think most people aren't on Twitter to pull out the credit card. They're there to hang out. It's kind of like a coffee shop. So it's something. And if you don't have, if you only have one novel and you don't want to give it away for free, what I did early on that kind of was one of the first things that helped me was I'd happened to have this short story that I'd submitted to Swords and Sorcerers anthology or something, and it didn't get in, but it related to my book because it had the same main character. So what I did is I put that out there for free, and at this time I only knew about I didn't know about price matching on Amazon, so it was only through Smashwords that I got it in Barnes & Noble and iTunes for free. And what I did is it was like maybe a 6,000 or 8,000 word short story, and I put an excerpt from the novel in the back of it, just I think 4 or 5 pages, kind of an exciting scene that would get them that could show them the personalities of the characters and that it's kind of a fun story. And I said, if you enjoy the short story, go check out the novel, which is $2.99 at the time. And that was sort of one of the early things I did that really helped with sales.
Oh, excellent. Good advice. A while back, you said when you made the transition to being a full-time author. Can you give us a little insight of how you decided to do that? Was it in stages or whatever? And when did that actually happen to you from you're quitting your day job or whatever it is you did before?
Well, I've been self-employed for about 10 years since after I got out of the Army. That turned me off of working for other people. So I figured it out early on. I used to be a professional blogger, and I had a bunch of content websites and made money from selling ads and doing affiliate programs. So it was sort of a gradual, I kind of checked out of that before I should have probably, but I was still making a little money from that, and I was really excited about the writing. So over about a year, it was a transition where I was, like I said, checking out from that one, still doing a little work, and just really hoping that I could make the author thing work out. Because, with the ebooks and the self-publishing and the 70% royalty, it was sort of like the first time where I could see that you could actually make a living doing this without some insane publishing deal or getting really lucky or having to have 20 books out before you can make a living. So.
Yeah. So what's your typical day look like now then? How much time do you spend writing versus social media and stuff?
I don't do a lot of promotion or social media. I probably post to Facebook on my author page 3 or 4 times a week. I'm on Twitter just because that's sort of the one thing I liked and that I was on there before I had anything published. So I'm usually just on there, usually on my phone. And, like I said, I like the advertising when it works because that's so easy. Just, here, take my credit card. I give you my credit card, just publish or, promote my book. I'm happy. It takes me 5 minutes. That's like the best thing. So most of my time now is writing, editing.
And in a typical day, like how many hours a day do you write?
This last year, I've really, I've been kind of motivated actually by the self-publishing podcast guys that are always like, yeah, we did 10,000 words before lunch, and
that's Johnny.
He gets up so early.
He's not up before lunch. So.
And then there's been some Kindle Boards thread too, where they were like, I do 10,000 words a day. I publish a novel every month. So I've been working more on it. So I've gradually gotten better, and I actually had some of my first 10,000 word days just a couple months ago. So like a writing day, I have to take the dogs out because the one that was annoying me earlier is only 1-year-old, so they unfortunately won't let me do anything in the morning before I take them out. And I live near the National Forest, so I go for long hikes in the morning with them, and I'll often kind of use that as I'll either listen to podcasts or I will be kind of on my iPhone with the little notepad app open and figuring out the scenes that I'm going to write that day. And then I'll go home and I'll write maybe, I think it takes about 6 hours of absolutely uninterrupted writing for me to get that 8,000 or 10,000 words. And but most days, it's not perfect, so I like to play tennis and have a life too. I figure if you're going to work from home, the whole perk is that you don't have to work 8 hours a day in a cubicle. So, but yeah, I have a lot of respect for the people that do work 12, 16 hours to make their dreams work. I guess I'm lucky that I think the thing I have going for me is just really consistent. I work almost every day at it, and even when I'm here traveling, I did 6,000 words yesterday and went and sampled some wines at the wineries in the area because that's important to stay lubricated, hydrated.
Hydrated, that's it.
Yeah. So.
Now I have a question related to what you were saying, and part of it was on Self-Publishing Podcast recently we were approached by somebody, I won't say who their name was, but they wanted us to interview them on the show, and I don't know if we will or not. One of my big problems with it it is somebody that is into content marketing. So I bought one of their books because
was it $97?
No, not that kind of marketing. No, it was more like the Kindle Gold Rush sort of thing. So I bought one of the books just to see what this person talked about, and they did make some claims like, oh, you can make a lot of money with this, and I didn't like that at all. But a lot of the other stuff about it was very factual stuff. It was somebody that really knew their shit. So my question is, because I've always been hardcore against marketers, but there are some marketers that you can take some of their knowledge without taking the poison that comes with it and learn. Have you done that? Because you were into marketing before with the content marketing with your websites. Is there stuff that you learned while doing that you applied to writing and, kind of like white hat hackers, you use it for good?
I actually thought I would have a big advantage coming in to selling books because I'd been online for so long, and I knew quite a bit about search engine optimization at the time. I haven't kept up with it too much in the last few years, but at the time, writing articles and getting links to your site was really big. And it helped a lot less than I thought it would. I would say that most of the people who come to my site, well, I do write about self-publishing a lot, so most of the people that come are writers via Twitter links and that sort of thing. Or they're readers who have already discovered my work by finding it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or somewhere else, and then they come check out my site later on. So what I learned is that, of course, it's really important to optimize your Amazon book pages, try to have a good blurb, have a good sample, have a good cover. And, I never really screwed around too much on Amazon. I remember for a while keywords were really big, and you'd see these people with 150 tagged versions of assassins in this book, and I didn't really see that it helped that much. And I guess the fact that Amazon did away with that shows that they weren't doing too much with that. But I never got into the copywriting, unfortunately. It just was never my bag, trying to get people to buy something. I made all of my money just by having Google AdWords and AdSense up on my site, and a few independent deals with advertisers, and also through like the Amazon affiliate program and a few other affiliate programs that made a little more money. So I really never had to do the hard sell. I just tried to put out a lot of good content, and people eventually found it and would click on the ad. So in that way, I'm kind of similar. I'm not a really hard sell person. So. But
it did help to get you discoverability for your website, which talks about writing and stuff. I mean, that's how I found you early on, was you were talking about writing. So you were one of the few people doing it, a few years ago.
Yeah, I think I did early on. I did write some articles and put them on eZine articles. I don't even know if that site's still in existence, but I know there's been some Google updates that have kind of downgraded the effectiveness of having 1,000 copies of the same article back there with links to your site. But fortunately now I've got like a bigger Twitter following, and some of the people that like Joanna Penn and the book designer site, JF Bookman, I think it is, they'll retweet my tweets when I put out the writing stuff, and I try to retweet some of their stuff. And so in that world, the networking is also good. I'm not sure how effective it is purely for book sales, but yeah, if you can do guest posts and interviews on other people's site, if they invite you and you can get links back to your site, that definitely helps still. I get quite a bit of search engine traffic on my site, and it's kind of funny because half of it is like the writing stuff, and half is like, do Sicarius and Amaranth ever kiss? Which are two of my characters. So it's about 50-50.
Very specific search.
Yeah, sometimes it's very entertaining going into the Google Analytics and seeing how people find you.
When I did a webcomic, Todd and Penguin, I would get lots of bizarre searches like for penguin sex and stuff like that, and I had no penguin sex in my comic, but yeah, people search for weird shit.
Penguin sex, nice.
Yeah.
So I've also had the ones where people are trying to find the pirate versions of my ebooks. They're like, free copy of Emperor's Edge 5, and for whatever reason they click on my site like it's going to be there. Like, no, you have to go to BitTorrent or wherever these are. I don't know.
You should put up a fake torrent of your book, like a virus, and knocks them all.
Well, she came up with a book called Torrent. So.
That was just to confuse people.
Or put the free book out there, but like the last 3 chapters are missing. If you want the rest, email me.
For you, special price, $19.99. For the people that went through Amazon, $2.99.
Trish, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, this really piggybacks off of Dave's question, so that worked out really well, Dave. So you were quite well known, actually, in the self-publishing community for your self-publishing kind of help blogs and this new walking podcast that you're doing. I'm just really curious how you kind of balance your fan interaction with the writer interaction. Does this kind of, when you're doing a lot of posts on the writing aspect of it, does it hinder your fan engagement?
I found that people are really good at clicking on what applies to them and enjoying it for what it's worth. At one point, I said, I'm not going to write about writing or self-publishing anymore. I'm only going to write about fantasy because that's what I should be doing to build my audience. Just fantasy, and I'm going to review fantasy books and talk about fantasy. And I tried that for about a month, and my page traffic dropped in half. And also, at the same time, I got fewer sales of my books. So a lot of people that find the self-publishing articles and stuff, either they're interested in the genre or maybe they just want to support my work. I'm sure that Dave gets that at the self-publishing podcast kind of thing. And I think people appreciate the help, and especially if you have something free or 99 cents, they're like, hey, why not? I'll check it out. But I actually use Amazon affiliate links so I can monitor which sales do come from my website or from my newsletter. So that's really useful in kind of tracking and seeing how effective the website is as far as selling books. Or it's exciting when you send out a newsletter and stick that Amazon link in there, and the next day you've got like 300 sales of the book. Not only do you earn that extra 7%, but you can see that, yes, the newsletter is actually effective.
Oh, that's a great idea. I didn't even think about that. John, you had a question from a viewer?
Actually, Jay Chastain on our website has a couple of questions. He want to know if writing really long series puts any kind of undue pressure on you. Do you ever find that your writing suffers because your readers are so passionate about the stories? You ever get paranoid about screwing it up?
For the most part, I tell the story I want to tell, and they just have to deal with it. But yeah, I did notice when I kind of ended my Emperor's Edge series at book 7, and I thought I probably won't do any more after that, which was not exactly true. But in that one, a main character may have passed away, not to give it too many spoilers here. And so I think the reviews were not just because of that, but just ending the series, the reviews were not as good as they had been for like the couple books before. And I think it is hard, especially when you come to the end of the series, to satisfy everybody. I'm flattered that I've gotten so many emails telling me, like, I want to see this with your characters. What should happen is he and she should go off and they should have these other adventures, or maybe have you ever decided to do these other point of views? So I think everybody gets an idea in their head of how they want to see things end, and it can be hard to satisfy everyone at the end. But I think you just have to write the story you want to write, and hopefully you'll keep enough people happy that they won't give you 1-star reviews and go away stomping their feet and hating you. So.
Just do a choose-your-own-adventure type ending. Do you want to see this person live? Go here.
And Jay's second question is there a particular kind of person or personality that you would say should not self-publish?
Well, I would say anybody that's not interested at all and not willing to learn the business and marketing side of things. I think you can be an introvert and can be not so excited about the hard sell and make it work. You can kind of find ways that work for you, especially with the internet. It's so great for us introverts. We can actually talk to people and not scared of them. But yeah, you don't have to do the hard sell. But that's one person. If you're just totally not willing to treat it as a business or think of it that way, if you're just an artist and if all you want to do is just hand it to some publisher and have them do everything. Although I'm told from all the people in the traditional world that that's kind of a myth, that they'll do everything anymore. And I've kind of seen with my own friends that have gotten publishing deals that so far none of the people that kind of came out of I was in a writer's group. And some people have gotten agents and some people have gotten published, but nobody's been a super blockbuster success yet right out of the gates. And I think that's just super rare. Every now and then you hear somebody, their book going to auction and getting a lot of great offers. And even then, even if it goes to auction and gets six-figure advances, there's really no guarantee that the book's going to really be a hit. So I think the publishers themselves don't even know what's going to be a hit. But if that's all you want to do is do the manuscript and nothing else, I think probably self-publishing is going to be a hard road. Or if different dog is up now. If you have just really high expectations, there was actually just a Kindle Boards thread of somebody that they had one book out and it had a good cover and it had good reviews and they were disappointed that it's not selling better than it is. I was like, well, you got to write more books. That's just one. It's been several months since you wrote it. You got to write more, and you got to keep them coming. So if you only want to do one book, maybe you only have one book in you, or you're just not sure yet, that's another thing where I think you're not going to get much out of self-publishing. It does seem to be that most people that have a lot of success do a lot of books and treat this as a career.
Okay,
Oh, go ahead, Trish. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So in the current climate, I mean, everyone knows that the industry seems like it kind of tumbles around and lands on its head every couple of months. But in today's climate of self-publishing, what would you consider to be the most important advice to give someone brand new just starting out?
Probably just to not go into it with too high of expectations. I think somebody was asking me just the other day, like, how do you keep from getting discouraged when you're starting out and, you're only able to sell a book a day? I was like, a book a day? That's awesome. I didn't get a book a day when I got started, so maybe I had really low expectations, but I just assumed it would be the kind of thing where you'd have to build it up over time. And I think that I'm impatient, but if you're so impatient that your book's been out a week and it's not doing well and it's just crushing you and that's your whole world, it's going to be really hard for you to be successful in your own eyes. And the success is different for everyone else. But if you just take it as like, this is going to be hard, and I'm probably not going to be a big star with the first book or the first two books, it's just you're going to be less setting yourself up for disappointment, I think. So I think if you can have that attitude of, just one book at a time, be excited by each sale, and if somebody sends you an email that they like the book, put that on the fridge. That's great stuff.
All right. That's good. That's perfect advice, by the way. That was awesome. Any follow-up to anything from the website, John, or are we good?
No, we're good there. Lindsay, are you still interested in staying for the after party?
Sure. I might have to let the puppies out, but I'm good. I don't know what the after party is, but sounds fun. Is there hot tubs and beer and wine?
All virtual, but yeah.
Carl also lets his puppies out, but that's something completely different.
So long as it's below the screen.
Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate it. Great insight and lots of good information for people, so thank you so much.
All right, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Give us a like on the old YouTube channel or a review. iTunes.
What website should we tell people to go to? I don't.
Oh yes, for Lindsay. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, LindsyBuroker.com, and if you can spell that, way to go. But no, if you get even close, I think you'll find it. So, or you can, if you Google like Emperor's Edge or yeah, if you try.
Or the kissing scene, or what you had said.
Yeah. Do they kiss ever?
That's Buroker, right. Buroker, correct?
Yes, but seriously, if they get close, I've seen in my Google Analytics that nobody spells it right. So, but they find the site anyway because there's not a whole lot of. I think I'm the only one out there. So.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching.
If you're wanting in on the after party, remember to leave your address in the comment section.
Yes, please. And give us reviews, please, iTunes. We'd appreciate it very much. Good night, all.